Live is our regular broadcast on the HLA YouTube channel as well as all the other social media channels. Each week we talk to interesting people from across the HLA community.
Good evening, everyone. I am really excited to be chairing tonight's meeting.
Hi, I'm Rosie Spooner and I'm hosting HLA Live this Wednesday.
And I'm an HLA scholar and I'm also going to be your host this evening.
To share with us their ideas and their innovations and hopefully bring them to a global audience.
Quite quick, we have ideas, let's do this, let's do that. So
many of the topics come from our community, with scholars and faculty expressing an interest in many of the discussions that we're about to have.
Hello everyone and welcome to the HLA Live session on widening participation in the postgraduate realm.
Homelessness and health.
Addiction and the new normal.
HLA programs are built on 6 pillars. The leader is an innovator and entrepreneur. The leader is a communicator. The leader is a manager. The leader as a negotiator. The leader as a follower. And the leader as a philosopher. If you are interested in becoming a HLA scholar, why not get in contact? Many of the episodes in HLA Live will cover one or more of these important pillars. The HLA team consists of Pedra, Eamon, Tim, Riddy, Alistair, Adil and Trisha, and a range of other HLA scholars and faculty.
An open-sourced, independent, evidence-based educational model. Before the Plastic Fellows get into the details and break down that phrase, I want to begin with one question. Does everyone have equal access to medical education? The answer is obviously no. But why is this the case? This is a question that Plastic Fellows has been trying to answer for the last 2 years, specifically in relation to evidence-based education for plastic and reconstructive surgeons. There are many ways to approach this question, but let's focus on 3 areas. Firstly, what is the current state of medical education and how did it get here? Secondly, what is an open-source sustainable education model? Finally, what could the future hold? Like everything in life, medical education has undergone an evolution. From times when Game of Thrones was probably realistic and there was no medical records, to a stepwise approach and modernization towards formal records. As education shifted online, organizations and institutional bodies had to pivot their business models. They could no longer rely on physical aspect of journals and textbooks. Publishers had 2 options, democratization or commercialization. There was an assumption that online education will improve access to medical knowledge, but this assumption was only partially accurate. It was accurate in the sense that people could now read abstracts from anywhere in the world, but that's pretty much as far as they got. Evidence-based information became a closed ecosystem designed to be financially profitable. It was built on the desire of doctors to be published. On the Plastic Fellows' unofficial scoring system, the publishers and educational institutions missed the mark. How much did they miss the mark by? Well, the Plastic Fellows surveyed 350 members in the community and here are the results. 2/3 of this cohort don't routinely read journals. More than half of them state the main reasons for this was because of paywalls or the difficulties and frustrations of multiple sign-ups through different libraries and institutions. Surprisingly, nearly 52% often said the journals often are not relevant to what they need and they are not concise enough. From this data, a checklist can be created. It is clear that a user takes the following points into consideration. Are there paywalls? Do we need to sign up? How relevant is this information to me right now? And do I trust this source? What is interesting, users want to experience a completely free evidence-based platform that does not require and sign up or logins and is specifically relevant to their educational curriculum. In the current status quo, there appears to be a mismatch of incentives between educator and learner. The plastic surgery trainee wants to learn, but the educational body and journal publication is looking to make money. This realization was the origins of theplasticfellow.com and was the first step in answering the question first posed, why is medical education not equally accessible? Attempts have been made to make evidence-based literature more accessible to the wider public through open or global open journals. These are often sibling papers from the main journals. On first glance, it seems like a great concept by removing paywalls and giving more access to readers. But obviously, that revenue stream needs to be replaced, so instead they charge the person or department submitting the project. Some have suggested this business model, if you could call it a business model, is borderline predatory. Nonetheless, it is an example of another misalignment of incentives. A lot of this boils down to a term coined by the plastic fellas called Research Industrial Complex Hack, which simplifies to rich. Essentially, the publication process is a multi-level money-making scheme that benefits the publisher companies, not publisher individuals. Publishers rely on free, user-generated content, which they make money through paywalls/subscriptions, open journals, free reviewers who volunteer, ads, and grants. In the publisher's eyes, it's perfect, but it's not. The publishing companies are taking user-generated, usually government-funded content and charging those same researchers/institutions to access it, whilst getting a lot of their review work done for free. Looking at this pathway, all $ leads to the publication and nothing is really flowing downstream. Despite evidence-based content being created by doctors and experts, they cannot freely access their own work. The irony. Trying to address that or fix that in some way feels like a meaningful problem to solve, and there's people who need that problem to be solved. But it's no quick fix. From an educational platform point of view, it's just an interesting problem solve. It's an interesting challenge to work on, and a challenge the plasticfellas.com is taking on by developing an open-sourced educational model, which brings us to our second point. Here is one solution. An open-sourced, independent educational model. It's not a business model, it is an educational model. Usually, when I tell people the Plastic Fella is open-sourced, the first question is, what's that? And the second question is, why on earth would you do that? Open source is a phrase Profella stole from the tech world. Let's make it normal vocabulary in the education world. It is a term that originally referred to open source software. Open source software is code that is designed to be publicly accessible. Anyone can see, modify, and distribute the code as they see fit. It is developed in a decentralized and collaborative way, relying on community production. Open source software is often cheaper, more flexible, and has more longevity than its proprietary peers, because it is developed by communities rather than a single author or company. This is the future of plastic surgery. So what does this mean in practical terms? Essentially, the Plastic Fella does not copyright. When the community creates content, they still own the content. Unlike journals, which take full ownership of their hard work, the content exists by itself. No one owns it. Open source has become a movement and a way of working that reaches beyond the for-profit educational companies. It is independent. This leads us to the discussion what it means to be independent. For the Plastics Fella, independence refers to both its users and its business model. From a user perspective, they own their work and their data. From a business perspective, the Plastics Fella does not seek any government funding or educational funding. It does not look to partner with medical device manufacturers or seek sponsorships. In the business world, it would be defined as bootstrapping a business, an extreme form of it. This is the only way to be truly independent and ensure that your incentives align with the incentives of a learner. The Plastics Fella is not the central component. It is just one of many components working together towards a common goal. Free, independent, evidence-based education. When people hear this, the question often asked next is, so how does the Plastic Fella stay afloat? This is where the sustainable principle comes into play. It's a perpetuating circle to ensure growth whilst maintaining accessibility. The incentives are aligned. To explain this circle, firstly, great open source content attracts a community. Secondly, some of the community may be interested in premium features. They can either access premium features for a small fee or they can get it for free by contributing to the community. Either way, they are supporting the platform. Finally, all revenue or content created through the premium features is kept within the community and the platform to create even more great content. This is a challenge for other educational companies. How can you create a sustainable business model without charging for access to evidence-based content? I feel the Plastic Fellas is on the right track, but it's still a work in progress. So what are the premium features? Coach is an example of one. This is the new conversational artificial intelligence service. Through logic, conditions and understanding of utterances relevant to plastic surgery, the Plastics Fella is creating a human-like experience to access knowledge. This knowledge is completely free on the website, but some users may prefer the convenience and unique experience of this learning method. In the future, the Plastics Fella will hopefully be an incredible community of open source contributors from all over the world who graciously volunteer their time and their knowledge. Many journals are currently quite good at creating the sense of community through social media. The irony of it all, though, is that they provide links to content that is behind a paywall of subscription. Without open source, there will always be paywall and sign-ups required to access even the most basic plastic surgery knowledge. I decided that owning the work of other people was not for me, and it didn't excite me very much. The answer is that you build the best thing possible for users, students, educators, and the team, and something that you're happy to work on every day because it feels good and it feels like it's beneficial for you, for the people you're around, and for the world you live in. ThePlasticFella.com is not a revolutionary idea. It's just a good idea.
Thank you to everyone that made tonight's episode possible. Whenever our scholars are thinking about complex problems facing our health systems, we encourage them to think about how they make significant change in the world of healthcare. We are incredibly lucky to have some incredible scholars in the HLA. They use the HLA as a platform to take their ideas and bring them to fruition. If you are interested in the work of the HLA, why not join us at one of our future HLA events? Why not join one of our programs? Why not even become a HLA scholar? Thank you for joining us. My name is Johan Marlwaner, the Director of the HLA, and it's a good night from all of us.